Brace yourself. Linda Ronstadt just tore open the quiet vault of her past and named the 5 people who cut her deepest. It was not a leak, not idle gossip, not a hidden diary. She spoke by choice because when a singing voice finally quits the body, another voice demands a mic. She felt the old stage lights flicker in her memory and chose to burn them brighter with truth. Her stories flipped shiny rock myths upside down. The first shock sits with the Eagles, the very band that once tuned their guitars behind her bright spotlight. Crowds cheered those early shows, never guessing who would soon headline loud stadiums worldwide. Back then, Linda spotted raw gold in those young players and pulled them onto big stages. She booked them for club dates, paid them fair, and bragged about their harmonies in every interview. Glenn Frey, still rough around the edges, won her respect with tight riffs and real teamwork. The family feeling did not last. Fame grows fast and memories shrink. After Hotel California ruled the airwaves, no one spoke of their sweat-soaked nights lugging her amps, not even Frey. During a chat in 1977, he shrugged. We learned a lot from those days, but frankly, we're on our own now. Cameras flashed while Linda watched from home, stunned by the neat erasure. Invitations stopped the very next morning. The final break came at the Hollywood Bowl, planned as a sweet reunion fans begged for. Minutes before the schedule was locked, Frey's manager called with a twist. The Eagles would close after Linda. A tiny switch on paper, a giant shove in real life. She refused. She did not crave top billing. Yet she would not let history paint her as an opening act for men she once shepherded. Frey scrapped the show and sent a cold note. I don't think the audience will be expecting you anymore. The words hit like ice water down her spine. That sentence branded her. Linda understands competition, but she sensed something darker, an attempt to wash hands of the woman who gave them a start. Reporters pressed her for comment, and she offered only a smile that masked a hurricane. When fans asked why she skipped every Eagle party, she laughed and said history should not be cleaned with soap. Years rolled, but yet the sting stayed fresh. She poured that frustration into new tours, built her own all-star bands, proving night after night that she never needed borrowed feathers to fly. Each encore felt like silent revenge. She never wished Frey harm, yet his silence felt like betrayal. After his passing in 2016, she stayed away from public grief. Cameras searched for her at memorials and found only empty seats. In private, she whispered, I thought we were allies, and that thought still stings. Glenn remains her first ghost. Not for his fame, but for the empty space he carved in a story that deserved a full chorus. Linda wants no medals, only memory that rings true, and that which keeps her awake when the concert halls fall quiet. Lightning strikes twice. Linda Ronstadt once idolized Neil Young, the rebel with a guitar and a cause, yet his shadow left one of her deepest scars. They met in 1976 for a benefit show meant to lift immigrant workers. The plan sounded noble, yet tension flashed the moment setlist talks began. Linda offered tender favorites, Desperado and Blue Bayou, songs that rap hard truths in velvet melodies. Neil sneered, We're not here to sing salon music. The words crackled like dry wood. She swallowed the insult. Minutes later, he cut her short again, barking that Real protest must be rough enough to bruise ears. To her, his tone was not guidance. It was a shove off stage. That night she stood in the wings, guitar silent, heart pounding while the lights glared without her. Tears fell in the dressing room. She cried not for lost spotlight, but for being locked out of a movement she supported with every fiber. Dawn brought resolve. Never again would she share a bill with a man who cut her voice mid-sentence. Promoters begged for the dream duet. She refused every time. Her clearest answer came when someone pitched a television special with the pair side by side. She replied, I choose not to stand next to someone who despises me. Neil struck back through the press. In 1978, he told reporters, some have good voices, but not the guts to touch what really hurts. She heard the barb and etched the words into memory. Public silence hid private fire. At gatherings where Neil's name floated, She would pause and drop a line that stilled the room. He is very good at making people believe he is on the right side, even when he is the one who silences them. Every syllable dripped with calm flame. Years passed and invitations kept arriving, all unanswered. A mutual friend once carried a short apology from Neil. She left the note unopened, not from hate, but from doubt. She no longer trusted quick apologies that cost nothing. For Linda, Neil came to symbolize a loud voice who thinks his cause stands taller than anyone else's. He saw women as sweet background singers, allowed to join protests only when handed a mic. She needed no such permission, yet being shoved aside felt less like disappointment and more like trying to breathe through heavy cloth. Meanwhile, she kept speaking through her catalog. Album after album carried hidden lightning, lines that jabbed at quiet oppression, while letting listeners dance and dream. Fans felt the fight even if they never knew its name. She turned the pain into power. On tour, she mixed tender ballad with defiant anthems, proving you can fight while sounding sweet. Crowds roared and critics admitted her songs move hearts and minds alike. Asked decades later if she would change her reaction to that cruel night, she smiled softly. I would not need to defend myself. Time handled it for me. That answer still echoes. Neil's legacy stands tall, yet every time his name drifts down a backstage hallway, so does her story of silence, warning new voices to guard their space. This hurt was deeper than a simple no, because it came from people who once shouted about justice yet ignored her right to choose her own road. Neil Young kept marching on stage, waving banners, collecting praise, while Linda stayed silent with a wound that never closed. Every time she thought of allies who let her down, his name shot to front like a cruel punchline that never stops. Linda Ronstadt never bowed to fame. Even while sharing studios with giants, she refused to shrink into the background of any project. Then came the run-in with Mick Jagger, and it felt like a masterclass in how standing beside power can cut your dignity to pieces. Back in the 80s, she signed on for a star-packed charity show. Mick dreamed up a wild finale. Everyone would build a fresh twist on sympathy for the devil. Linda nodded, ready to help the cause. But after one rehearsal, Jagger's publicist blasted promo photos across the press with Linda's face jammed next to his, and the cruel line Jagger and guest vocalists underneath. No names, no permission, no respect. She swallowed the slight, yet quietly canceled every offer tied to the Stones for more than 10 years. She told a friend that she refused to be hauled in as a shiny prop to feed someone else's ego. The wound ripped wider in 1987 when Jagger strutted onto a late-night talk show. The host teased, "Linda Ronstadt is one of the most outstanding voices you've ever sung with." "How's that?" Mick smirked and fired back. "She looks better when she's not singing." The crowd exploded with laughter. Everyone but the woman who once shared that stage. Linda answered no reporter, but scribbled in her diary, "They say women should laugh when men joke. If it is funny, I choose silence as protest." Later, a label dangled a duet spot on Mick's solo record, only as she boosted her sexy image. Her reply was ice cold. She did not need to be sexy to sing, and if that was the rule, she would rather never sing that song. Linda still praised Mick's uncanny showmanship, saying he made crowds feel each lyric was theirs. Yet to her, he stood for raw power that borrows another person's image, squeezes it for more fame, then walks away untouched. She never expected an apology or even an explanation. People cushioned by endless applause rarely sensed the need to speak. But if asked who snapped her final thread of trust in superstar partnerships, she would answer in a heartbeat, Mick Jagger. For Linda, it was not revenge. It was a line in stone. Once crossed, no spotlight could lure her back. After that bitter lesson, Linda drew a clear border around her world, and anyone who mocked her worth stayed outside forever. Mick Jagger would be her instant reply if someone asked who wrecked her faith in working with the ultra-famous. She carried no burning grudge, only a bright red stop sign that never came down. Yet the deepest cut came from another direction, the one place she thought she would find shelter in this loud business. Linda once believed women on the edge of power would lift one another with empathy and fairness. Then she stepped into the orbit of Joni Mitchell, and the dream cracked wide open. Linda respected Joni with every fiber. She loved that Joni wrote her own lyrics, owned her sound, and steered every creative choice. Linda did not write songs. She interpreted them, and next to Joni, she sometimes felt small. At a 1979 Rolling Stone event, Linda unveiled a fresh arrangement of Joni's River, pouring her soul into each note. The crowd roared in delight. Minutes later, she spotted Joni chatting backstage. Linda walked over glowing with shared pride. Joni turned, offered a thin smile, and quipped, "I didn't know my songs were so popular." The words drifted lightly yet sliced with hidden sarcasm. Linda said nothing. She slipped away and spent the rest of the night alone in the dressing room, wondering why admiration could sting so sharply. A week later, a magazine asked Joni how she felt about others covering her work. Joni replied, "I write from my blood. No one can convey that unless they have lived it." Linda folded the interview shut and never spoke Mitchell's name to the press again. Producers later begged her to include more Mitchell titles on a ballad record. She refused, not out of spite toward the music, but to avoid tying her voice to someone who made her feel unreal, as if borrowed emotion had no place on stage. In the years that followed, Linda stayed polite whenever Joni surfaced in conversation. No praise, no critique, just a cool, steady neutrality. When a journalist once asked if she would ever work with Mitchell again, Linda's reply was simple: "I admire talent, yet I choose partners who have talent and kindness. For me, one is not enough." Joni was not an enemy, yet she marked the first time a fellow female artist made Linda doubt her own worth, something even the bluntest male critics had never achieved. The lesson did not crush her spirit. Instead, it sharpened her sense of place. An artist who pours truth into songs she did not pen, still honest, still sincere, and never needing anyone's sealed approval. This cut deeper than any harsh no, because it came from someone she trusted, late in the studio. When only a handful of people lingered in the mixing room, Linda confessed to her friend, "I used to think I wasn't deep enough, that I was just a voice behind someone else's songs. Then I heard my own recordings and realized it's how you tell the story that makes it take on a whole new life. Not a copy, but a soulful version of yourself." Linda never needed applause to know her worth, but with Joni Mitchell, everything changed. It wasn't that Joni was better. It was that Linda believed they stood on equal ground. That belief made the silence that followed feel like a betrayal. When you expect an icon to lift you up, and instead you find indifference, the wound cuts slow and deep. Linda spent years shaking off the sting of feeling one step below, though no one ever said the words out loud. Next, she thought she'd find sisterhood with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris, three powerhouse women who forged one of the era's rare female bonds. Their trio albums felt like a sisterhood in song, until cracks appeared under the surface. In 1987, the first trio album soared. But on Trio 2, Dolly quietly asked to remove her vocals from several tracks for personal and scheduling reasons. Linda and the team agreed, leaving only Emmylou and Linda on a handful of songs. Linda thought the choice was respected. Then the record dropped, and Dolly was furious at how her exit was handled. No shouting match, no press storm, just a cold wall of silence that stretched on for years. Linda never blamed Dolly's need to bow out. She understood deadlines and artistic control. What hurt was that neither dared to pick up the phone and clear the air. They once trusted each other enough to hit the stage unrehearsed, singing heart to heart. After that, the music stopped, and so did their friendship. The worst betrayal isn't the fight. It's the silence that never heals. In 2005, backstage with Emmylou Harris, Linda finally spoke her mind. "I'm not angry at Dolly for choosing to withdraw. I'm upset she never asked me first, instead believing I pushed her out on purpose." It wasn't an accusation. It was a heartbreak laid bare. Years later at a Washington Awards gala, Linda, Dolly, and Emmylou reunited under bright lights. They hugged, smiled, and traded polite words. But Linda felt the spark was gone forever. No drama, No grudges. Just the ghost of something beautiful that neither knew how to revive. Dolly was never the villain in Linda's story. She called Dolly smart, sharp, a natural-born producer disguised as a country star. Yet both chose silence over conversation, and that choice drew a line neither could cross again. Linda doesn't expect every bond to last, but if she could name one friendship she mourns most, it's Dolly's. In a private note Linda wrote, "Some people aren't worth keeping, but others are worth every effort. Too bad we never made time to keep them right. Not all wounds roar, they sometimes whisper. These slow cuts come from trust once real, now left bleeding in quiet shadows." Linda isn't sharing these tales to punish anyone. She doesn't crave an apology or defense. In a world where women in music are often told to stay silent to preserve an image, speaking up, even late, is powerful. If this story makes you rethink the bright glare of fame or hunger to hear Linda's voice in new light, drop a comment. Who do you think hurt her most? And if you believe hidden corners of legend need daylight, share and subscribe so no story stays buried. Linda has spoken her truth. Now it's your turn.